So now they're moving into their 50s. Now they're moving into the next stage of life. And again, some big things happen in this decade. I mean, every decade of our financial journey has big things that take place, and that's no different. In their 50s, their second kid goes off to college. You know what that means? That means that they become empty nesters.
Yeah.
It's a different stage of life that they're entering into. And then in this decade, both of their kids finish college. They come out of college. All the while, they're still having to do stuff like buy cars, replace cars. They still have expenses that take place, and they're recognizing, man, we're probably at this stage have less working years ahead of us than we have behind us.
Yep.
So we better be pretty serious about thinking through what the next phase and stage looks like.
Yeah, and I think it's not uncommon as people get 5-10 years from retirement. They're like, man, I have spent decades planning for retirement, but how am I actually going to land this airplane? What do I not know? What are my blind spots? Good news, if you go to moneyguy.com/resources, we actually have the Money Guy Guide to Retirement, so you can kind of know some of those key things that you ought to be focusing on.
Another thing that's a great thing to do in your 50s is, do you actually know the goal that you're working towards? Do you actually know what your number is for financial independence? If you don't, we have a great course for you. Go to learn.moneyguy.com. It's a course that actually walks you through how to figure out your number and actually points you to exactly when can I be financially independent? What do I need to save to get there? What variable should I take into consideration? When you're in your 50s, this is the decade you ought to start thinking about that seriously, because while you might not be landing just yet, the landing strip is in sight. So it is time to start preparing yourself for that landing.
You know, they close out this decade with another cash for a new car. They replace a car with cash. But let's look at the actual journey and the money. And you can see what I think is pretty awesome. This entire decade, they never went below a savings rate of 25%.
They got serious about it.
Big difference from the messy middles of the 30s. That's something. And then I think it's interesting, they also, probably around 55, when they started thinking about the retirement planning and getting super serious, I don't know if they took the relationship to the next level, but they got so serious that they actually increased their savings rate another 5% to kind of just make sure that transition was as good as possible.
What I love is this would have been an easy time for them to think about, okay, do we need to take our foot off the pedal? You know, the kids are out of the house, our expenses are done. Maybe we don't need to focus on saving. But they said no. We really care about what this next phase looks like. We want to make sure that we finish the drill well, not just staying wealthy, but finish the drill well of the get wealthy behaviors. And one of those is savings. So they were committed all through their 50s to continue building their army of dollar bills. So what they did in this decade is they were incredibly well prepared to land that plane into retirement. They didn't take it easy, they didn't slack off. They did the things necessary to make sure that they were going to hit retirement with a full head of steam, with the momentum behind them.
Yeah, and then I think, look, once again, aspirationally, they'd have loved to have paid off all the debt, meaning be completely debt-free, even on the low-interest mortgage debt. But they decided, hey, it was more important if they felt a little behind on their retirement savings. Let's put a little more gas towards building up our army of dollars. We can see the finish line, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to pay off that debt soon enough.
And now what you think, as frenetic as the financial order of operations path was in the 30s and even in the 40s, in the 50s it shouldn't be that way, because if you've been making decisions for the last couple of decades, you should be in a financial place where your financial situation is pretty consistent. You can see for Manny and Maddie, because of the decisions they made prior, they were pretty much in step 8 for this whole decade. They didn't get away from their savings, but they were able to think about what are the next things that we want to do? What are the next things that we want to focus on? How do we prepare for this next stage and season of life?